So, hello everyone. Good morning if you are in the US, or good afternoon if you are in the UK. Welcome to everybody. I'm so pleased to welcome you this morning to a new news break. I'm here this morning with Carolyn Stephens seeking the truth. And I'm just trying to get the link to hand to her so she can also post this on her channels on Facebook, etc. So we'll have more of an audience as we speak this morning. I don't know if you can see that, Carolyn. I've just posted it in chat.
It's not a problem because we're live now
Oh,
already.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. All right. So everyone, just to give everyone a brief introduction to Carolyn Stephens, those of you who are on my Twitter pages will know that yesterday I posted a link to a couple of videos from Carolyn Stephens and screenshotted some of the graphics from her transcript, which she had posted at her website. And basically, what she is doing is really exposing something very major right now. But to give you a little bit of background on who Caroline Stephens is, she is a podcaster, an analyst, a commentator, much like me, but I think in a slightly different way as well, because her background is so different and so brilliant. Her background is in the financial services industry and in teaching mathematics. She's also had a background in education, in government work. She's worked on EU issues, Brexit issues, etc. And I'm hoping that she can tell us more about all of that shortly. But the most extraordinary thing is that from 2019, she's been running this YouTube channel of her own where she's been building on her interviews from previous platforms and producing monologues about important issues. So she's a public speaker and a public influencer. And her areas of expertise and interest seem to range from homelessness to political matters regarding Agenda 2030 and the New World Order. And I take that from her website, carolynstephens.net, Carolyn Stephens Seeking the Truth. So, Caroline, thank you so much for joining me. I'm sorry, I know I've been pronouncing your name wrong. It's Caroline, pardon me. Welcome, and thank you for joining me this morning.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. It was all done in a bit of a rush, but hopefully we can put a great show together for the people across the Atlantic because it's really important, isn't it? We're talking about global issues. We're being forced to talk about global issues, whether we like it or not, really, and with the New World Order. So the more we can unite across the Atlantic, the better for the people.
Absolutely. And it seems like it's all become so global indeed, hasn't it? Everything that affects people in one country is now affecting everyone else. And of course, with this entire COVID scenario, that's what we are seeing, right? It's played out across the entire world at this point in time. So Caroline, you exposed something rather major yesterday. I don't know if it was yesterday, but I found your video only yesterday. I was sent it on by someone else, and it's lit up the internet at this point in time because you did a massive reveal on a secret document or about a secret meeting that was held a little while ago. But I want you to tell us all about it. So feel free, tell us what it was, how you found out, how
You're frozen.
the
You're
the
back.
import of the information.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. It's not the first time
Well,
I've gone.
it says, sorry.
Are you there? You're there now. You're
It's
back.
I'm here. I'm here. You know, Caroline, it looks like we have a bit of an unstable connection and it seems like it's freezing out a little bit. This has been happening a little bit on my live shows, so just to let you know. So if you see me frozen, sort of hang in there because I usually come right back. That seems to be what's working out currently. So
Don't
who
worry
knows?
about it because I'm used to this. When I used to record live
Yeah.
on the internet before my channel was taken down. So my first major video actually was March of last year, and I talked about something called the Lisbon Treaty. Because, as you rightly mentioned, I've come from a
Yeah.
political background as well, and I was the Brexit campaign manager for the whole of the UK. So, after standing for
Oh
Parliament,
wow.
yeah, yeah. And I'd fly to Scotland, I'd fly to Northern Ireland, drove to Wales, and it was a case of trying to bring the UK together. So I had a really unique position. Um, so that video about the Lisbon Treaty, now this is a treaty that we had signed years and years ago, and it came into effect in 2009. Well, we learned a lot more about the Lisbon Treaty, but that was only revealed coming up to 2 years ago now. And that video had over 400,000 hits on Facebook. So that's when I started really having my own channel. After that, I launched on my own. As you say, I've had other platforms before, and broke away from it all. Because you see, you know what it's like when you're in charge of your own platform. If you don't like an interview, if something untoward uh, comes to the fore after the interview, you've got the ownership of that video, haven't you? So you can do what you want. So this May, June time, a friend of mine who does ad hoc research for me, she basically found this link on the internet, and that link had been displayed under somebody's YouTube video. She often doesn't so much watch the videos, but she loves the comments underneath. Well, I can't do that anymore now with my channel being removed. But anyway, so she found one in the summer. She clicked on the link, and it was of a voice speaking and showing PowerPoint slides. So somebody had been present at a common purpose meeting, Zoom meeting. So, it's easier, perhaps, maybe it could be easier to expose when you've got a Zoom meeting. And perhaps this person was very concerned about what they'd heard during the Zoom meeting, and maybe had a bit of a conscience. Because common purpose, I don't know if you've got it in America, it's around quite a lot of the countries around the world. It's a charity, it's a registered charity that was set up with, I think, £1 million so many years ago. And this is about change management. Now, I've done change management working for a large corporation way back, half a lifetime ago. And I was actually, well, they call them, do you remember Be the Best? That was an American,
That's right.
wasn't it? Do you remember?
Yes.
And they had the ISOs. And I was a facilitator, a facility manager. And I was given this job in an office of bringing in new processes and getting people into little huddles. And they had to work out the best way forward. You're still there, aren't you? Yeah.
I'm here. I'm just sharing the screen and showing the Common Purpose website. I just heard about Common Purpose recently, by the way, from Trevor Mealham from Action for Justice in the UK. And, he's been talking about them and talking about how they're putting leaders sort of as infiltrators in every big organization now.
Well, I best add that my role wasn't to do with common purpose, but it was of a similar ilk, if you like. It was an internal role.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like forced upon me, as well as all these other roles I had to do. It was, I was in charge of an office where some of those people were going to be made redundant, because if you're streamlining operations, you're actually going to make people redundant. So it was a very, very difficult role. So, I mean, comes along common purpose. I came across it through the truth movement, if there is such a thing as a truth movement. And this is after the campaign, the Brexit campaign, and this common purpose meeting. Well, these PowerPoint slides were absolutely dynamite. And, lots of people have asked me, oh, can I have the links for this? I honestly do not have the URL. Firstly, it was my friend who found it.
Okay.
She wanted to copy the slides, so she actually painstakingly sat through the night typing out the slides. Then there was a problem with her computer. So at some point in the proceedings, all she did was photo shoot the slides. And so there is no way we can resurrect the URL.
Has it disappeared? Is the URL gone now? Is that what's happened?
Basically, every so often, her computer just basically wipes itself. She doesn't know why. And you
Oh,
go
yeah,
through
a
your
lot of us have that problem.
exactly, exactly. It's almost like there's some invisible hand working behind your computer screen. So she couldn't find it, but she had still the screenshots. And that's all I have. So I cannot provide. So all these people are now saying, oh, she must be a shill. Well, why? Just because, it's like, I don't do anybody's bidding. Who's my employer? I don't have an employer. So are you saying, actually, I'm very, very upset about this because you don't trust what I'm saying is true? Just because other people might do that, don't tar me with the same brush. So this meeting, I mean, is part one, part two. I listed the attendees. I mean, the first video is about half an hour, and for some people, they only want 2 minutes. It never fails to amaze me. There's all these people in who want the truth, and they want to know what's going to happen to them next year, but they can't afford 30 minutes when we're in lockdown. Remember, so a lot of people are stuck at home with not a great deal to do, perhaps, apart from, these exercises they keep showing on television. And so, as an alternative, what better than to know what the government is planning for you? But anyway, some people have really, really appreciated this information coming out. It's explosive. You've got the head of the legal profession in Wales. You've got the head of the BBC in Wales. And who else have you got? Police, one of the top police, top NHS, and you've got a guy who represents this 5G group. So you can see it's all been knit together, and there's to make sure that the message is compatible with each other. They're all working together. And there were these comments like the pandemic, it's nothing really to worry about, but we are basically being dishonestly honest in our approach. Now, I don't know about you, but dishonestly honest, what's that all about? And that is, people still believe in the BBC in the UK, the Brussels Broadcasting Corporation. It is actually the elite broadcasting corporation. But we had there's Deloitte UK, one of the big four accountancy companies, and it sort of came to light through this meeting that Deloitte had been given, allegedly, the rights to everybody's data. Now, whether that's linked with the national vaccination plan, I don't know, but you sign all these forms, don't you? And you say, I don't give my consent to this, I don't give my consent to that. Mm-hmm. But does anybody ever listen to you? I mean, I remember being on a website, I think it was UKIP, I think it was the UKIP website, and all of a sudden, a couple of years later, I start getting emails from the Trump campaign. Well, I've never subscribed to the Trump campaign, and every so often I've been getting these emails from Trump saying, can you spare $40 or what have you? And I'm thinking, no, it'd be nice if you could spare me the $40, not the other way around. So, where your data goes off into the internet, cyberspace, and you never know where it's going to end up. But yes, I did part two yesterday. I think you've seen the part two, and that's when I focused on the rollout of 5G. Have you seen the Truman Show?
Yes, yes. We're living in the Truman Show right now, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I was actually when I got your email, I was sat watching the television, and it came on automatically, and I'm thinking, how did that happen? So
Oh my God. This might be all written in the script, the two of us having this conversation.
absolutely, but we haven't got. Let's be honest. I haven't got a script, so I'm
Nor do
free.
I.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm free to talk about anything, provided I'm obviously concerned that you don't get taken off the air. Because
Yeah.
I've interviewed people in the past and they've said the most incredibly stupid things, and then that's given me a copyright strike against my YouTube channel. And that doesn't do anybody any good, does it? I mean, that is very
No.
inconsiderate of people. So please, if you have any sort of restrictions, and at home, who's watching now, please do understand that it's nobody wants to have their YouTube channel removed like I had. So there we go. I mean, what do you
No,
say?
we're still. So I'm sorry that your channel was removed, however, Caroline, but you're doing a fantastic job on Facebook, I think, right?
Yeah, although I have to say I've been banned. I've had about 3 months of bans. A month. I had a 3 months ban at the beginning of the year, and then I've had two subsequent 1 month bans. So I've probably it got to a point where I was actually off more than I was on.
Oh, that's awful. You need, as I need, and all of us probably need, we need different platforms. We need platforms that are not going to be taken down, where freedom of speech and expression is respected, right?
Well, the only one that I know of is the citizenband.com, and they've got a video platform which is videoband.nl, which stands for Netherlands. And then I've got my own section on there, just houses my videos, and it's / Caroline hyphen Stevens with a PH and / again. And that takes you straight to my section. But of course, because it's not run by the establishment, it takes a little bit longer to have, perhaps for the videos to upload. And some people are so used to clicking on the button and a video popping
Yeah.
up that 30 seconds, they're going off to make a cup of tea, they've maybe lost interest by that. So please stick with it. Videoband.nl, Caroline hyphen
Yeah.
Stephen / and we can put that on the links anyway at the bottom.
I'm sharing your screen right now, the screen right now, and showing that page of yours, by the way. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, that's your video page I'm showing right now.
Thank
And
you.
absolutely. And I was showing, and let me go back actually. So the top three videos are what people need to watch. This is the explosive information, which we're going to go back to talking in just a minute about. And this is the blog entry, which has the transcript of that first video, which, by the way, I screenshot in bits and posted on Twitter, and it created quite a stir on Twitter yesterday. People have been retweeting it all over the place. People are very interested about this information because, this is sort of a smoking gun kind of thing. This is the actual evidence that there are people, the strategy planners, who are working with the big accounting firms, working with the police. The chief superintendent of police from Wales was part of this meeting, right?
Yep.
And
You just cut out there.
oh,
You
did I just cut out?
you
Okay,
did. You talked about the police being there and how it was all being networked together, and
correct.
and of course they actually then had a follow-on meeting on the 11th of May, another Zoom meeting, and they were talking about where they were going to be by Christmas, really, the plan of action. And to be fair, if I had released that information earlier, because in actual fact, my friend, when she typed it all out, she printed it off, and she knew I was during lockdown. I spent a lot of time doing the garden. We basically removed some of the plants and we started growing vegetables. We haven't got a big garden, so don't expect
Hmm.
it's not massive, massive. But it because there were so many stones in there, it took a lot of work, and I was distracted. And I thought, well, this is great because otherwise people will just get sick of you moaning and groaning on the internet. So go and do something positive with this time, because I could see this was just a window of opportunity to get your house in order, literally your house in order. um your finances in order and all that sort of thing, because I knew this was almost like I felt like it was a dummy run. I didn't know. I felt in my heart. Maybe it's women's intuition, but when you're a truth seeker, when you've been watching, you watch the signs, don't you? So basically, my friend had a problem with some broccoli seeds. They hadn't grown, and because we couldn't travel very far, we were only supposed to travel within 5 miles of our home. And I didn't have anywhere within 5 miles of my home that had
Mhm.
broccoli seeds to replace. So she sent some. And in that envelope was that transcript. And that was in late spring, early summer, when she chanced upon it. And I did a video on Sunday, and she then rang me up. She said, Caroline, I think you need to now talk about that meeting because it's now all fitting together in the way you're laying out your videos. So genuinely, I have not got the URL. So I don't want people tampering with my laptop remotely. That's not a good idea. I don't have it, honestly, and I couldn't take you to where she found it because she cannot find it herself. So that's basically it. That was the timing, and I did it in part one on Tuesday and part two yesterday. Part two was really the 5G element, and I just condensed that one into 15 minutes. But I don't believe that these PowerPoint slides would have been released by any of the guest speakers who I listed. It would have been somebody, when they're talking about guest speakers, one would expect there was an audience to go with those guest speakers. So that's all I can surmise. But, if I had the URL, why would I want to compromise somebody else's generosity? Because if they had not taken it upon themselves and possibly put themselves at risk, now we know this. For so many years, we've had these people who've talked about 5G, they've talked about common purpose, they've talked about this, talked about that. But it doesn't seem to register with people because they can't see it happening in their everyday lives. They get shown a document here and a document there. And it's when it all comes together and it's so close to home, it would appear that Wales is going to be a guinea pig for this 5G and all the linking with the data. And it's like, oh, wow, this is really happening. I checked all these individuals out. All these people exist. And of course, I started researching where they'd been. We had the 5G guy, he's involved in investment, global consultancy, not necessarily 5G, but he's classed as a 5G expert at the meeting. Then
That's
you
the alacrity guy, right? Alacrity entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's part of something like, is it Wesley Clover? He has lots of fingers in lots of pies, as I guess some of them have. The health lady, what was so interesting was the fact that she'd actually spent some time not so far from you in Baltimore. She'd been at the
Johns
Johns
Hopkins.
Hopkins University, and
Yeah.
we see this so many. Every day we were getting these updates from the Prime Minister, and it was the Johns Hopkins University this, and of course this was where Event 201 was held.
Event 201. Absolutely. Yeah. So,
Before Event 201, there was something called Clade X, which was a similar simulation, and that was given to, I believe, the CIA. So that was May 2018. So Event 201 did happen, but Event 201, it seems it gave, dare I say it, the Americans the opportunity to point the fingers at China, perhaps. But in actual fact, it seems really that it all was originated from, dare I say it, USA.
I guess I was bumped off. See, at my end, it looked like you'd been bumped off. So we're back again. I'm sorry, you were speaking about Event 201 and everything froze over here.
Yeah, there was a simulation the
Yes,
year
yeah.
before in May 2018, and that was, I think, primarily the audience was primarily Americans. It's CIA. So you can't. So people just focus on this event 201, but this has been a series of events. Even going back to, well,
Oh,
I
yeah,
guess
they've been planning for a very long time.
was going to say it's been going on for probably hundreds of years, and sometimes I talk about the unmentionable in some of my monologues and interviews. I talk about usury, and if we didn't have the power of the banks, people think the Bank of England is for the people. We should have a Bank of England, but it's a private corporation, as I'm sure you know, in the same way as the Federal Reserve is. So if we didn't have the Federal Reserve poking their nose in, same with the Bank of England, and we know now, you take a step back, you've got the International Monetary Fund and the Bank of International Settlements, and they are steering all this. And then of course, you've got your World Economic Forum, and how do you explain to somebody in the street? Say you're waiting to get into a supermarket on a morning, because we sometimes have the queuing system back here at the moment. And if you're trying to generate a conversation, what do you talk about? What's your strap line? Because I don't have one standard strap line, I must admit.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch what you said. We froze again for just a second. Were you asking me a question, Caroline?
Yeah, I was. How do you tackle this sort of thing? Do you ever tackle this sort of thing in the street with somebody you've never met, and perhaps you're waiting in the same place, and you might want to strike up a conversation, or they might strike up a conversation with you? What would you actually tackle some of these issues, do you think?
It's very difficult. I agree, because most of the people one runs into, especially at the grocery store or out walking or whatever, they're wearing their masks and they're being compliant little souls. It's like, what can you say to them? I mean, I did say to one family that was walking by with their children masked, I said, the masks have been found to be really dangerous and ineffective for the children in particular. They're really hazardous to wear for the children. And, they just yanked their kids closer to them and took them away from me. So that was their response.
You're frozen again.
Also, do you know, I think a lot of I think, oh, sorry, am I back now?
You're back, yeah.
Okay. I think a lot of role playing and role modeling is going on, false flagging. I think the people out in the street wearing the masks are sort of doing this role play for this substructure, this power structure that is trying to impose these horrendous things on us today, because they're trying to sort of behavior modify everybody. They're trying to sort of set an example to behavior modify all of us, and it's not going to happen. So I'm very gratified when I see people speaking out. I just watched a video this morning, very powerful and inspiring and empowering video from Peggy Hall, the healthyamerican.org. I don't know if you know her. She's
Yeah.
a fabulous speaker. I'll post it on my website and send you the link, but I'll send you the link anyway as soon as I finish this conversation with you. She's married to a pastor. She's in California, and right from the beginning of this COVID mayhem, she's been making videos looking at the laws and pointing out that these mayors and governors have no right. They do not have the right to issue these edicts and so-called laws. These are not really laws. These are guidances. They are trying to pull a fast one over on us. They are trying to get us all corralled, like sheep into a herd. They're playing sheepdog, and they're trying to get us to start obeying and complying. And, now it's the mask. What is it going to be next? Leave your house and walk in a straight line to the local camp?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the mask. I mean, these blue masks. I read the report about the coating on these blue masks, and I think it's Teflon, is it? And when you've got that close to your face for any length of time, there is a direct correlation between wearing one of these with the chemicals on and lung cancer. But and there's sometimes when I see people in the street and I just so desperately want to save their lives. And then I think I have to look at them and judge whether they're going to shout at me. Do you know what I mean? Like, mind you,
Yeah.
I'm not talking to, and we have this over here. I don't know. I don't think you have anything like that over these lanyards. There's two types of lanyards.
Oh, to wear an exemption card on. Yeah.
Well, the doctors don't want to get involved with that. You can't see a doctor here anyway. I mean, I know we've got the NHS, but it's I wouldn't say it's dissolved. Some people are still getting their operations between one lockdown and another lockdown. There's somebody who had a cataract removed on the NHS last Friday, and we've already gone into lockdown. But I guess as time progresses, there will be less and less operations. And of course, there are a lot of other appointments that have been cancelled, hip operations and cancer referrals that have not been fully assessed and carried
It's
out.
absolutely, I mean, we're living in the twilight zone. It's absolutely bizarre what is going on. They've shut down real healthcare that might have been absolutely needed and focused everybody on fake healthcare. And, by the way, can we go back actually to your document, Caroline, and talk about the actual nuts and bolts of what you learned from it, which you published, which is what is so explosive? For instance, the people speaking about the entire COVID thing agreed that there was no real COVID disease, right? There was no actual disease. There was no COVID-19. It's fake. Oh, can you lift that up a little bit so we can see? Oh, perfect. Oh, we're just seeing the top of it if you want to just, move the whole thing. We're just seeing the paper and it's gone completely at this
Oh, it's
point.
gone that way.
Oh, there we go. Common purpose. We see that, and that's about all I see.
Yeah.
Um, can you pull it up a little bit, if you can, Caroline? Aims and objectives of the Zoom meeting. Okay, I read that. I can't see the text below, but perhaps you can tell us what the text is all about.
Oh, I probably have to wear my glasses. It really is difficult because, it's right. So it basically says the aim and objective of the Zoom webinar, Thursday, the 7th of May, gosh, was to ascertain the something to the public during a scenario in which the United Kingdom faces a pandemic. Does it say created pandemic or credited pandemic? That doesn't make sense if it's credited.
It's definitely created and manufactured.
Absolutely. As the UK prepares to go through to exit the first stage of lockdown, it is difficult because you see, the thing is, my friend had the copy before this copy. I can see the list of the people. You've got the director of the BBC of Wales.
Okay.
Marie Mayhan is the chief executive of Common Purpose. She organised it. And then you've got the chief superintendent of South Wales Police. You've got a lady called Hopkins, head of the health board, which is Hopkins, right? So
Dr. Sharon Hopkins, right, director of the health board at
yes.
one of the universities in Wales, right?
You've got the chief executive of Deloitte, and basically there was a demonstration about 5G in Glastonbury. Now, it doesn't say whether it was orchestrated or not.
Okay.
It just says that it was actually reported in by the BBC. And the 5G guy, obviously, he's got a target to get this 5G rolled out. So the last thing he wants, and the rest of them want, is demonstrations talking about the health risks actually going onto the mainstream media. So the BBC were basically saying, well, we're caught between a rock and a hard place. If we don't do it, people will assume one thing. So we best report it and then perhaps maybe discard it at a future stage. So yes, they're wanting to make sure that the biggest thing is the 5G, because there are people, including a lord, a hereditary lord, in the Houses of Parliament. So we've got, in our Houses of Parliament, we've got the House of Commons with the elected representatives, and we've got the Lords, both hereditary and lifetime peers, they're called. And those two houses, so there's a lord in there who's invested big time in the rollout of 5G. And they've invested so much money that in that meeting, it said that if it was not done at all, or if it was not done on time, to pay back all those investors, it would actually bump up our income tax rate to 60% overnight.
Why should we pay for it, for the mistakes they've made?
Absolutely. 60%. So, but we've got so many situations. We see in America, you've got Trump saying about the wall. I don't know whether your immigration, did it ever alter? Did he actually
It,
put a stop to it?
no, no, it's still going on. They're still counting votes around the country. So, it sounds definitely like Trump actually won by a landslide. There's been a lot of voting, counting fraud in many states, and that stuff is coming out. That sort of seems to be the status currently. It won't happen until the end of November. We won't know for sure until the end of November, I think.
Of course, you see, even if he got re-elected, who's in charge of the USA? Is it Trump or is it the elites, the Federal Reserve? And
The
that's what we
Fed,
were talking.
the Federal Reserve in the City of London, the Crown,
And then we got the Vatican.
and the Vatican. Yeah, the
You've also,
bloodlines.
yeah, absolutely. So we've got all these groups as well, purporting to be awake and aware and shepherding the people with good talk about vibes and positivity, and we must come together. But in actual fact, we're in the end times now, and what can you say? In the end times, people will be deceived even more than they were deceived before. So you've got all these people saying all this soft, warm, fluffy stuff, but it's the new world order, isn't it? I mean, they've got
It
to.
is. And, I had a conversation yesterday with Dean Henderson. I need to post it today. It was remarkable because he, as you know, is a researcher. He's delved into the power substructure. He's looked into people's backgrounds. He's looked into their affiliations. He's found out how they all hang together and roll together. The Club of Rome, Chatham House, the Royal House of International Affairs, the Bilderbergers, the Trilateral Commission, you name it. And he's figured out who is behind it all. The Crown Corporation, the European bloodline families, and they are working together. They're sort of running the show. And Trump is also somebody who's been kind of manipulated behind the scenes. You had in those terms, right? All of the top leaders have been placed in their positions. You never get to that level, right, of visibility, of public visibility, unless you are supported by them and you are pushed forward by them. So that's what's happened, and that's the case with Trump as well. So whatever happens, as you say, whether Trump comes back or Biden is pushed forward, the scenario, the underground scenario, continues to roll out, right? Their intention, their agenda continues to roll out. And that brings us back. I wanted to ask you about Chatham House actually, because you mentioned this meeting was held at Chatham House, right? It was.
Oh no, it's a term. So this was held across Zoom.
Oh, it
Uh,
was on Zoom. Okay.
but the term Chatham House, and I have to say, I've been speaking to business people about Chatham House meetings this week. And I said, I've just revealed a Chatham House. And so what's that? So, there are a
Hmm.
lot of people out there that don't know what it means. And my understanding is, and whether it's linked to Tavistock Institute and the brainwashing, but it's, you go to a meeting and everything that happens and says in that meeting as stays in that meeting, stays within those four walls, and it does not come out. So whether it's been to our advantage that it has been during lockdown and we've been privy to these slides which we wouldn't ordinarily have been privy to. If you were in a meeting and you were in the same room, somebody would notice you filming, wouldn't they? But
Hmm.
but through, so sometimes things work for the good, not always for the bad.
Oh, absolutely. I was just sort of screen sharing and showing the Chatham House website and also the Wikipedia entry, which talks a little bit about who they are and what their background is. They're the Royal Institute of International Affairs, Policy Institute, and here are their presidents, etc. And they do work on policy, right? And they work on policy along with these people like the World Economic Forum guys, etc. So that seems to be what you were kind of referring to then. Because initially I thought it was a Chatham House strategy meeting document that you had released.
No, it's common purpose. So basically, that lady who was running that meeting, she's worked for Common Purpose since 2014, and she has been running their 2020 course for I think 5 years. So this isn't, it just doesn't happen overnight. This has all been happening behind closed doors. What was so amazing with this is it brings it into reality. So what they've been doing 2020 leadership course, these people were spending over £5,000 for the week on, change management. Because, this lockdown, we've got huge unemployment and it will get bigger and bigger, and people's jobs will change. The nature of their jobs, many people will have to retrain. I mean, we're used in the UK to going shopping still. We don't always have everything delivered here because we've
Same
got
here. Yeah.
right. Okay. I just imagine people in the middle of the desert or something that maybe they do use Amazon, but dare I say it. But we like to shop. It's a what is it? Britain was a nation of shopkeepers, wasn't it? 100 and odd years ago, and we like to shop. I love to. I
Mm-hmm.
don't buy anything really. Food wise or clothes wise, I like to go in. And going into the high street today, there's so few shops open. You
It's
know,
dreadful what's happened. I mean, the businesses being shut down is the worst thing because that's shutting down the life of the street, the life of society. People going out to have a coffee, to meet, to have lunch together, etc. All of that has sort of been shut down. And that's part of what is absolutely egregious about what is going on currently. And,
we have no protection.
Caroline,
Yeah, sorry. I was going to say, I was just concerned more about the young generation because a lot of those people are actually in the 0 hour contracts, low paid, have no protection jobs. You're frozen on me. Now, the beauties of technology.
going on. Have I frozen out and brought back in
You're
again?
back, you're back. Yeah, you went for a long time that time.
Oh my goodness, I was busy talking. I thought people were listening. So just to sort of recap, I was just saying, yes, they've destroyed the life of the street, they've destroyed the life of society, they've shut everybody down, and it's literally a war. It's an attack on humanity. It's an attack on our basic human social lives. And I was saying that, what you have revealed with those documents really suggests that these guys know what they're doing. They know that they're sort of irrationally shutting life down for no reason. They admit that there is no virus. They admit there's no real disease. They admit that vitamin C, D, zinc, magnesium are great, but that they're choosing to be dishonestly honest. They're advising NHS to be dishonestly honest and spread this information about real natural health through these means, through vitamins, just in order to push forward their agenda to get everybody force vaccinated. So, right? I mean, do you think that is their base agenda? They want everybody vaccinated. Why do they want everybody vaccinated? I mean, I was alarmed to see that the words under sedation were mentioned. Somebody has mentioned they don't care. They want everyone vaccinated, even those who protest, and it'll be done under sedation.
That's what they did say. And the legal people were going to imprison you or fine you or both. There was talk about G4S, how many spaces there were in the prisons, and they weren't at capacity. And there was a bit of leeway at the minute, but they'd like to keep that leeway. So I guess I just, it is so surreal hearing. Well, they're obviously not human beings. They are obviously that they may be robots. Who knows? With artificial intelligence in its advanced stages, they could have been replaced. They might have been cloned. I mean, it's not beyond the realms of possibility because nobody would have believed this talk 6 months ago if I had read this document out. How unbelievably close we have come now to their end game. It's literally, whilst lockdown has occurred in March, it's everything's just up for grabs almost, like everything's just all falling into place for them. So what really scares me, the thing that scares me the most, is the people that have been following various government psyops on social media. And I won't even mention, because you get people unfriending you because you don't follow that government psyops, because they don't see it as a government psyop.
That's it exactly. They're government psyops. It's psychological warfare they're being subjected to currently.
So not only are you sort of fighting the openly bad guys in a spiritual way, but you've got those bad guys on your side as well. And people say, well,
Yeah.
does it matter what they're saying? And I said, yeah, well, it does, because unless you understand controlled opposition, you what they do is then they group people, they corral people together in a pen. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes,
Corral
exactly.
them in a pen, and then they just walk away. And those people just think, oh, okay, that was it. It's like political parties. Same happened. I stood for a political party in 2015. And, after that general election, people were saying, and after the referendum, people say that party will disappear. And, it's taken 4 years, but it's all but disappeared. And the political party system, the court system, everything is a corporation. The nation states, they're all registered at Dun and Bradstreet, and this is the big problem. And so you've got these people who are corralling people again in the UK, asking for money, crowdfunding. Oh, we're going to issue letters to the MPs. Do we think that's never happened before? It's they're not forced to listen to you because they're a corporation. And if we are living men and women, and we're dealing with corporations, so it's like oil and water, they're not going to mix. And if you're playing a game of chess, and you're blindfolded, that's not really fair, is it? And that's what we're doing. We're playing chess, so you don't play their game. We can't play their game.
We
But
don't play the game. We
no, we
shouldn't.
can't. Exactly.
And that's actually what we spoke about on Report 204. This was one of the UK news panels with a group of UK leaders, people like John Smith, who convened the first common law court, and Michael O, and Michelle Young. This is the series I was telling you about, Caroline. And the focus in that show really was about how we can break away from this psyop, this huge psychological attack on us, by claiming ourselves alive as living men and women and using common law, using the protections of common law.
But you've
Um,
got to be careful with the common law because there are dangers with that as well. You have a birth certificate, and I don't know whether you're aware or your audience is aware, funds attached to you, aren't they, when you're born with that birth certificate because you are
but we
registered.
don't. But we don't have access to those funds. We've been defrauded in so many different ways, right? So people would love to know how to access those funds, the Sestika V trust funds, right? So that seems to be an ongoing conversation. If you have any information on that, by all means, come back and talk about it, because people are very interested in knowing how they can access those funds. Because right now, people are being impoverished, attacked in so many ways, targeted, etc. And being subject to this farce, this birth certificate fraud through the all caps name, the legal fiction, the straw man. So we do need to declare ourselves alive so corporations can't have a hold over us. For instance, this is the fear that many people have, that the military is going to come knocking on your door and demand that you get tested and get vaccinated, which I want to know what the solution is. How do you say no to these guys? How do you say buzz off, get off my porch? You know?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because have you been following Slovakia?
No, no, that
For
name is unfamiliar.
Slovakia, they had 28
Oh, you're talking about the
doctors.
country. Okay.
Yes. So 28 American doctors flew out there to take charge, I believe, of the vaccinations over there. Now, the newspaper report that I read, it said there were
Mhm.
3.5 million people living in Slovakia, and something like 2 million refused. Now, I can't swear to it, but I thought, oh, good on them. Good on them. But then I've just been privy today of a report produced by the people who actually went in to vaccinate. And they're saying that 97% were vaccinated. So if anybody who's watching can shed some light on why the newspaper report appears to differ so greatly from the actual report on the internet, I'd be really grateful. But yes, what would happen? I mean, basically, you've got the doctor from Moderna saying that there's quite a common video that's gone round, and he just basically says if you refuse to be vaccinated, you just fall away out of society. So you don't have access to the NHS. Well, I have to say, we are blessed, or we have been blessed in the past to some extent with the NHS. I haven't had a dental appointment since the beginning of the year. It was an entitlement under the NHS that you got a free appointment every 6 months, um, for under 18s, etc., etc. Now you can't get those appointments. So we have paid taxes through our lives, and you're frozen again. And we paid the taxes. And so if you say they've had access to our trust funds, and then that we've paid taxes on top, and we're getting nothing to show for it. I mean, we pay council tax on our houses. So you can pay maybe £2,500 a year. And what do we get? We get the bins emptied once a fortnight. We get street lighting. The library hasn't hardly ever been open this year. And what services do we get? Well, there's bits given to the police and bits given to social care. The social care preset is not, nobody's being looked after anymore. People are having to fend for themselves. And not only that, but it's one thing fending for yourself, but being under the constraints, like being in a straitjacket, you can't go out, or for people who have children at home and with disabilities, and they needed people to help them, and so they could go out to the shops. There have been really, the suicides are up here, and I'm sure they are in America.
Yes, and the same in the US as well, from what I can tell. Something that needs a specific focus on, I think. People need to do some coverage on the suicides that have gone up, because that is very, very alarming. You've laid it out absolutely brilliantly. That is exactly right. There is no social welfare ongoing currently, which means there is no public health going. Because, we are talking about the elderly, the disabled, we're talking about the young, all of people who need care, who need access to their medical caregivers. And if the medical care industry has been shut down, well, has the natural healthcare industry been raised up? No, there's been a shutdown. Everything is shut down. So you have to ask, is what we are seeing, is this legitimately public health, or is this repression? Are we experiencing extreme repression currently?
Well, we had the NHS formed in 1948, so that came after two world wars, and it's all been done by design. It was to control our health. When you ask me about the testing, what is it all about, and the vaccinations? Well, I believe the testing is actually to check out your DNA. Um,
That's what a lot of people say, especially with that nose swab going so high up and hits the brain almost. Perhaps they're trying to put something there, or they're trying to take something from there.
well, I was going to say you don't know what you're putting up your nose for a start. There could be something. I think China did. Don't want to blame a country. I don't want to start a war, because that's what it's all about.
No,
Is
don't.
put the blame on China, but yet behind the scenes, I know, and I'm sure you know as well, that China's very, very happy, thank you very much, with the UK and the USA collaboration because the elites, they're elites. They're not, they don't have a Chinese stamp on them. They don't have an American stamp on them. They're part of a parallel universe they could be. So the Chinese, the vaccination system, if they exported some of these swabs and some of them were found to be defective, why would you want anything put into you in this way? But it's a tribal thing. You see, we all come from various tribes, and I believe there's certain tribes they particularly want to eradicate
Oh,
because you've got your Kudnoff-Kalergi plan, you see.
oh, that's right. That's the genetic interest. They do have a eugenicist interest here.
Yes, and what is Bill Gates's father? Sorry, I'm just losing my signal here. Yeah, Bill Gates's father was a eugenist, and
That's right.
Stanley Johnson, the Prime Minister's father, he wrote a book on uh, eradication as well, didn't he? Of people.
I'm sorry, you froze out. Did you say Stanley Johnson was also involved in eugenics programs?
Absolutely, yes. So
Mhm.
I didn't know how to put it really delicately because when he wrote a book, I think it was in 1992, did Stanley Johnson, and he actually, I mean, Boris was our prime minister, was actually born in America, and we have a system in this country that
Hmm.
for years the people who ran Parliament had to be born in this country. They had to be here for generation after generation. You couldn't just walk into a country. Do you see what I mean? That was the constitution, but it's all been whittled away over the years.
It's been whittled away. God knows what's really going on, right? It seems like everything that we are seeing is just a sham and a facade. And, the reality that people are facing today is perhaps a wake-up call. Look at what's really happened. Look at how your lives have been shut down. Look at how your health care has been shut down. The fact that you have no social life anymore. And think very hard and deep about whether this, in fact, we know it is a government psyop, but those who don't know that it's a government psyop perhaps need to examine the tenor of their lives currently and understand what is truly happening. Because what is the next step? And perhaps this is where we can begin to think of leaving this conversation, Caroline, to direct people toward thinking about the future. What do you think their next
Oh, the wonders of modern technology. We'll come back, I think. She'll be coming back. What's the next step? You're back. No?
was perhaps we can direct this conversation as we wrap up currently, Caroline, toward what the future might be. Direct people's attention toward what do you think these government psyops and shutdowns are ultimately going to lead to? What do you think their next step is going to be? And what do you think our next step should therefore be in response? Are we going to sit back and let ourselves be victimized indefinitely?
Well, we could be cynical and think that, we're used to wearing pretty clothes, colourful clothes at the minute, and we might all be wearing brown, Comrade Brown. Uh,
Very soon, if
yeah,
needed. That's
absolutely.
a good point.
Um, this taking possessions off the middle classes and
Mhm.
the rest of us, taking possessions off us if we can't pay our bills. I mean, how are we supposed to continue paying the bills if we have no income? So that's a big problem. So the vaccinations, that's if we can't go shopping without a vaccination certificate, are they just going to starve us? Is that part of the plan? And of course, with Brexit, as I said, that was probably a huge government psyops as well on reflection. Never knew that at the time. So we're all led down the garden path. And, it's taken me all this time to work out that there is no Brexit. Because our
It
councils are,
hasn't happened.
well, not really. Well, I mean, we're operating under the World Economic Forum. We're operating
Right.
United Nations. I mean, we were talking about food and how when and nutrients, and our food is not supposed to have any nutrients in it. And there's something called Codex Alimentarius, and I did a show on that on Sunday. Have you heard of Codex Alimentarius?
Yes, absolutely. And that's a huge subject in itself as well. And that's their intention to patent, completely take over all living things, right? Plants, trees, all nutrition that comes to us from the living world, and, synthesize and patentize everything. So it's healthcare will be drugs and pharmaceuticals completely. And obviously, this is a doing of the pharmaceutical industry, as vaccines are. So, the picture you just painted was so immensely dark, and I think that's a picture to remind people of. The middle class is being crushed. Businesses are being shut down. Small business owners are losing their livelihoods. The next step is Agenda 21, the removal of property from everybody, brown shirts and camp life for everybody, indoctrination and training, forced to take these vaccine boosters every now and then because that's what they seem to envision looking at today's news. They want to give you the vaccine and then they want to give you doses of
Well,
humanity.
they've already set up a camp in Ireland. We see the
And they've
FEMA
stopped.
camps. Yeah, people don't know what FEMA camps are, but you've got FEMA camps in the USA, haven't you?
Yes, we do. And I hear they're being built in Canada as well. They're using the term quarantine now. And I don't know if you've been following what's going on in New Zealand, where the tyranny is off the scale, where the Jacinda Ardern, I think the Prime Minister, she came out and said if people refuse to take the test, they're never going to leave the camps. They're going to have to stay in the camps. They're going to be taken to the camps if they refuse the test, and they're going to be, forced to stay there if they keep refusing. So this is forced testing, forced vaccines. I mean, who are these people? Where did they come out of? How did democracy suddenly collapse overnight?
I don't think there was ever
What
a
is
proper
this?
democracy because, as soon as you create a vacuum, you're always going to get people seizing power. I mean, you and I have both been teachers. Do you remember when you had that naughty child in the class and, you were supposed to keep them in forever? And at one point you'd say, right, outside, go down to the corridor and go in the naughty room or wherever you had to send them. And, there was a little vacuum there and it maybe lasted a lesson. And then people would say, oh, right, I'm the next one in, the next one to go into that sort of space and rule the roost and humiliate the teacher. And that's just what it is, isn't it? That's human nature,
That's
unfortunately.
definitely what's going on right now. Well, I don't know if it's human nature, but it's certainly that people are rushing into the vacuum to take over power. And it seems like, somebody at the top decided, oh, these people are enjoying themselves too much. Let's shut them down. That's what's going on. So it's horrifying. But I think people are waking up and seeing what it really is. That this is tyranny. This is the flavor of tyranny. Wake up and smell it, please. And it's time for each of us individually to begin to speak back, write back, and act back. Because if we do not resist, the intention from all that we can see.
You're back.
Oh my God, they cut out my entire speech, so it's like
Yeah.
I was just saying that it's time for people to wake up and, understand we need to say something, do something, take action, or we are going to be bulldozed by this massive tide of tyranny. What would you say, Caroline, as empowering perhaps, or encouraging or reassuring to people at this time? What kind of message would you have as we wrap up this morning?
Well, I've been following the Ice Age farmer, and that got me prepping from about a year ago, actually. Food in, water. Uh, if you couldn't get to the bank, I love going to the bank, but lots of people use online banking. How are you going to use online banking when the internet is taken down for a couple of days? Presumably that's got to be part of the Great Reset, isn't it? That they're going to have to, how we're talking now on the grapevine of having a full national lockdown on the 30th of December. And how do I know? Because somebody heard a counsellor talking about it. And that counsellor, you see, conflict of interest, they have a business. So they've stopped doing their business in advance of their next big lockdown because they know it will affect their business. But you see, so this is what you've got. You've got a situation where tyranny is beneficial to a handful of people. And we're not just talking about the global elites, the people who've been put in place. You remember talking about elections. At the end of the day, the regulations are produced by the elites, and it all comes back to the Bank of England, the Federal Reserve, the World Economic Forum, and the International Bank of Financial Settlements. That's where it is. It's about usury. That's the bottom line. And no politician will talk about it. They will, because they're all financed by the banksters and the global elites. And they have all these meetings in Parliament, but the regulations are actually approved by effectively the banksters.
It's all about usury and the debt-based banking system, which they are not very interested in giving up. They want something to use against us, right, to keep humanity down. It's great that you've been prepping, and that's great information for us, actually, Caroline, that you heard through the grapevine that they're planning even worse shutdowns, etc., for this Great Reset. My whole approach is that the Great Reset is not going to happen, that humanity is going to rise and stop it from happening, because it's the end of humanity. You know, either humanity rises or we all get erased together. So I'm choosing to focus on the positive.
Okay, well, I'm going to be positive then. And it's a case of, do we want man's laws, or do we want to return to our creators? Well, they're not laws, this understanding with our creator. And it wouldn't hurt if people just got on their knees and just said, whoever you are, wherever you are, please hear my prayer.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. And that's a fabulous note to end on, that ultimately we are at a point where we do indeed need divine intervention. We invite divine intervention by through simple prayers, right?
Our
So
Father.
absolutely. All of that you heard about the secret meeting and the strategy document and planning, because I think that is earth-shaking news. It informs everybody that indeed, yes, the darkest indeed of intentions that people have attributed to these planners is all true. And you've kind of offered us the evidence
Yeah,
about all of these
absolutely.
aspects this morning. So thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you again very soon. Have a wonderful evening or
Thank
morning.
you for having me.